Hey guys, welcome to the Kentucky Derby review. I'm going to be handicapping this race and giving you guys my predictions on what I think is going to happen for the 152nd running for the Roses. I'm having to shoot this off my phone because I could not find a cable for my mic that goes along with my camera, so I'm having to shoot it off here. Not super happy about that. Honestly, kind of pissed, but I'm trying to move past that. I'm trying to let that go. So, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to kind of go through my thinking on how I got here. And sorry, the desk is wobbly. How I got to these picks, I've kind of narrowed it down to 11 horses for the top four positions. But I'm going to go through this data on what I looked at, and a lot of this is trend data. And the reason I am looking at that is because with handicapping a race like the Kentucky Derby with such a large field, it is so difficult to say that just based on the numbers that the best horse is going to win. So much of it is dictated by trip and luck. So with that, I think looking at the recent trends of the past decade or so are helpful in just giving you a sense of who is going to, finish in those first four spots. So, I think in this year's case, like Renegade, he is the morning line favorite. A lot of people like him, think he is the best horse based on the figures, pedigree, things like that. But I do not think that he is going to win this year. I think that first post position is a death sentence, unfortunately, for Mike Rapoli and his camp. But um, you know, he'll probably win now that I've said that. So make me just look stupid. So anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get into this and kind of some important things for you guys to think about when you're handicapping and making your selections for May 2nd. And yeah, let's stop jibber jabbing and I'll go ahead and get into it. Okay, so this first thing that I wanted to look at was where the past 10 winners have been at based on the fourth mile, half mile, mile positioning throughout the race. So, first, last year, Sovereignty, he was, as we all know, a horse that is typically a come off the pace late type of horse. He's not going to be, in the middle pack. He's more, that last third, and he'll make his final run there. Um, I wouldn't call him like a deep closer per se, but he is definitely, not someone that's going to be up front. But anyway, at the fourth mile, he was in 16th position. At the half mile, he was at ninth. At the mile, he was in fourth position. Mystic Dan in 2024, he was in between like third and fourth there at the fourth. He was in third at the half mile. At the mile, he was in second. Going back to Mage in 2023, he was at 15th at the fourth mile, 10th at the half mile, 5th at the mile. And Rich Strike in 2022, the biggest upset in Kentucky Derby history. He was at 17th at the fourth mile, 18th at the half mile, 15th at the mile, and then he ultimately won there. So I'm not going to go through any of the further ones there. I think that kind of gives us just a good look for the recency of where the past winners have been at pacing through the race. And typically by that half mile outside of Rich Strike, you need to be in 10th or closer to the pace to finish, just because that last stretch is long and there's a lot of ground to make up there. So if you need to be at least in the middle of the pack or closer to be successful to finish in first there, unless you get just the right trip. It's extremely fast pace. So so I put this together with a bunch of prompts with ChatGPT, just to collect data to make it a little bit easier. And based off that positioning of where they're pacing throughout the race, some key insights from that are that typically stalkers are the most common type of horse running style to win. You have examples of Justify, Nyquist, all of them sitting, within the 2 to 5 position, all within um, the race, and definitely by the mile they are within that 2 to 5 position. You have the closers occasionally, such as like Rich Strike, as we went over in 2022, or just a deep run at the mile pole. And then your wire to wires are very rare. There's just so much pressure on that leading horse throughout the race to hold off those people that are right on his neck is extremely difficult. So we don't see that too often. But a good example of that is Authentic in 2020 with John Velasquez on mount. So digging into the post positions of the draw, I mentioned I'm not going to be picking Renegade because I think, again, that first post is just a death sentence. I know some people will say, like, in recent years that it seems to have come alive a little bit more, and you have a better chance with them moving to a full 20 starting gate instead of the 14 and the second starting gate that had 6 gates in it, and there's that break in the middle. But with them moving to one continuous gate that has uh, 20 gates within it, it seems to be a little bit better. But still, post 1 and 2 haven't won in 40 plus years. Post 5 has the best win rate at about 10.5%. If you incorporate all 20 gates, because the field hasn't always had 20 in it. With that incorporated, actually gate 20 has the highest win percentage at, I think, like 10.9%. And then post 10, right there in the middle, they hit the money with nearly 30% of the time. The horse that's leaving that gate is finishing in position 1, 2, or 3. And then another interesting fact is 8 out of the last 13 winners have broken from post 13 or wider. And my top 3 selections for this year's Kentucky Derby, 2 of the 3 are breaking from post 13 or wider, I believe. No, that's incorrect. I'm a liar. Uh, I have 1 in post 12, 1 in post 18, and 1 in post 9. So spoiler alert, my top 3 picks are the Puma, Chief Wallaby, and Further Ado to win the Kentucky Derby. So another thing that I looked at too when factoring in my handicapping for this was, what did the last 10 winners of the Kentucky Derby do in their final prep race? And we are on a string the past 6 years, 7 years. The Kentucky Derby winner has not won their final prep. And I think this is a little bit like any type of tournament sport, such as like the NCAA tournament for college basketball, that winning your conference tournament isn't always the best thing. I think you do kind of squeeze all that luck and juice out in that tournament, and then you're kind of faced with an uphill battle to go on to win 6 games in the NCAA tournament, and then you have to probably win 4 or 5 in your conference tournament. So to go on an 11-game winning streak, just extremely difficult. And with horse racing, you see a horse that's won 3 in a row. That's crazy. So there's a lot of parity, and unless you have a super horse, like American Pharoah or something like that, where they're winning start after start after start, you just it's extremely rare. So I like to think that with this trend, more likely than not, the winner of the Kentucky Derby is not going to have won their last prep meet. But again, I looked 10 years back, And from 16, 17, and 18, Nyquist, Always Dreaming, and Justified, they all won their preps prior to the Kentucky Derby. But since Country House and then all the way up to Sovereignty, none of them have won their prep race prior to winning the Roses. Another little tidbit, and this one is not a heavy factor. I just thought it was interesting that um, so a horse that is 3 years old will not have run at Kentucky Derby unless, or run at Churchill Downs, excuse me, unless it was in their 2-year-old season, because Churchill Downs does not have any races prior to the Kentucky Derby for 3-year-olds for that are qualifying for the Kentucky Derby. But Animal Kingdom was the last winning horse to race at Churchill Downs prior to the Derby back in 2011. So when I was looking at these horses to see who had raced there in their 2-year-old season, to think maybe that has something to do with it. And again, I don't think it's a factor. I just think it's something that is interesting. So Commandment and Further Ado had raced at Churchill Downs. Albus had, Incredibolt had, and those are the only 4 horses actually that have ran at Churchill Downs prior to the Kentucky Derby here on May 2nd. So just something to keep in mind, and I don't think that is a causation factor of who will win or not, but just interesting. They talk about Further Ado being a horse for course with Keeneland, and some horses just like certain tracks better than others, and um, so yeah, I don't think this factors in at all. I don't know why I just went on that tangent, but sorry. So we're just gonna move on to the next note. So Beyer speed figures. When I first started handicapping, which I've gotten into horse racing about 2 years ago. So Mystic Dan's Kentucky Derby was the first that I really followed and got behind, and started looking into things. But typically the Beyer speed figure that a horse needs to showcase prior to the Kentucky Derby is a Beyer speed figure of at least 95. That would indicate that they have the speed and ability to win this Grade 1 race. So looking at the last 10 Derby horse winners, they all have a speed figure of 95 or higher, except for Rich Strike in 2022, and then Country House in 2019. And I believe Country House was the one who was elevated to win because of DQ for maximum security. I think that was that year. I think that was a bad DQ, by the way. But so you can probably cross out that one there. So only one of the 10 years has a horse not ran a 95 Beyer or better prior to the Kentucky Derby. So I think that is a very strong indicator to look at when you're handicapping, to see, of these horses, how quickly have they ran, what area of improvement is there for them to grow in their speed figures. But they definitely need to be hitting a certain threshold prior to that first weekend in May. So then I did go and categorize the horses in the 20 horse field of the ones that had hit that 95 mark prior to this race. And that came out to Commandment, Further Ado, Renegade, So Happy, The Puma, Emerging Market, Potente, Chief Wallaby, and Litmus Test. Those are the only horses that have ran a 95 speed figure or better in all of their lifetime starts. So another thing I looked at going further down into the speed figure funnel was I looked at the last 3 preps of all the Kentucky Derby horses, and I looked at the fastest race that they ran of their last 3 preps and what their the fractions were for that race for the 3/8 and the final eighth. So their final 3/8 and their final eighth, what was that clocked at? And I categorized them to, for the final 3/8, I looked at sub 37, and then for the final eighth, I looked at sub 13. Um, and the only horses that qualified to meet both those marks in their fastest prep of the last three that were both sub sub 37 and sub 13 were Commandment, Renegade, the Puma, Emerging Market, Incredible, and Chief Wallaby. Those are the only horses, the only like the only 6 horses that qualified to meet that criteria there. Oh, this video is so bad. No one's gonna take anything from it. Okay, so based on that data that I've collected, and again, I am obviously no expert. I'm making this video for free, and no one's paying me for my opinion because it's not worth anything. But here's how I have my picks and how I have things categorized for the Kentucky Derby and how I'll be betting. So I have 3 potential winners based on my analysis and looking at their last preps and how they're trending and all of that good stuff. Again, I think the 3 strongest bets for the win are the Puma, Chief Wallaby, and then Further Ado. I did not have Further Ado because I thought he, between the big 3, Commandment, Renegade, and Further Ado, I thought he was actually the weakest of those big 3. But I thought his post assignment in the 18th spot was a huge leg up and a big factor. Him being able to dictate his own pace from out there and to get a cleaner trip, not get stuck in behind horses, I think is a major factor that made me elevate him into a potential winner. So, Further Ado is up there. My top pick of those 3, though, would be the Puma. I just love this horse. I think he runs so hard, so aggressively. I think he's progressed in every race. He's with the Florida Derby, like just at the naked eye, it looked like he won that race. But his last 3 buyer speed figures went 83, 94, 100. So he's improving with every race. And I really do think that he's got something special. And what I also like are the connections, the jockey and trainer of Mage in 2023. Same here for the Puma. Same trainer, same jockey. And I think that they've got a special horse here. And I think that he is going to be my top pick there. But my top 3 in regards to who I really do think is the most likely would be the Puma, Chief Wallaby, and Further Ado, adding those in. In the second position, my next 3 horses would be Commandment, Emerging Market, and Dan and Bourbon. I think Commandment honestly would be my top choice and my top flight there if he had a better draw. But I really don't like the 6 hole there for him. Emerging Market, he's only got 2 starts on him, but I think that he is something special, and I have high hopes that he's going to finish in the money. And then Dan and Bourbon, I think it's unquestioned that he's the best horse that's coming from the Middle East or Japan, from those routes. I think he's got some speed to him and some ability to go the mile and the fourth. So I think that one of these years a Japanese or form-based horse is going to win. And Dan and Bourbon was bred in Kentucky. He's a Kentucky horse and moved over and grew up in Japan. So I don't know how you can really say he's necessarily a Japan horse. He's an American boy, but I think that he's got a good run in him, and he will perform and fly the flag for the overseas um, horses on May 2nd. My third flight would be Renegade, Incredible, and Potente. Renegade, again, I would have him higher up. I do think he's a good horse, but I do think that one hole is just going to hinder him too much. I don't think that he is the type of runner that to get a forward position. He's not gonna want to do that. That's not his running style. He wants to come from back of the pack, and I just think him getting shuffled too far back from that one hole, it's going to be too much ground to make up. So I've got him placing at third in the highest. I think that's his cap for this race, unfortunately, due to that draw position. Incredible and Potente. Incredible. I think he's someone that's going under the radar that I really feel strongly about finishing in the money. His closing 1/8 fraction from the Virginia Derby was 11.92, which is the fastest closing eighth of a fraction of any of these horses in any of their fastest final three preps. So he's not someone I'm hearing a lot of talk about, but I do think that he is someone that can really sneak in and help with the exactas, trifectas, and superfecta payouts there. So I wouldn't sleep on Incredible. And then Potente, I think Potente is a good horse. I like him a lot more than Litmus Test. I think with the Derby, you've always got to factor in Bob Baffert as the most winning trainer in Kentucky Derby history. I think with the Santa Anita Derby, he just was put in a bad position. He is someone who wants to press the pace, but he doesn't want to be on the lead. And unfortunately, with his draw position of 2, he didn't really have an option but to go to the lead when Cherokee Nation could not break from the gate. That poor horse is just he cannot get out of the gate. He's got cinder blocks on his hooves, but so I do think Patente is going to be relevant. I think he's looking good. I like his pedigree, and I think that he will end up in the money. But the highest I have him finishing would be third. And then my fourth flight of horses to round out the superfecta there would be Silent Tactic and Full Effort. Silent Tactic, he is just a consistent horse. He's good. He, is going to make money. I don't think he is a top flight horse in any regards. I think his speed figures just indicate that. Where is he? Yeah, so his last three um, speed figures 91, 91, 88. Just consistent, always runs a good race. I think that he has talent, but he is a B or a C flight horse compared to some of these others in here. But I do feel strongly about him coming in that fourth or fifth spot. So I would definitely not leave him off your ticket. And then Full Effort, another horse who is a Brad Cox trained horse. Got to throw a gray in there. And he, I think, with the setup of the Kentucky Derby, you're always going to have some type of closer that factors in. I don't think he's good enough to get there, but I think he is going to get in the money, and I think he's ran well. And I really like Tyler Gaffalione on this mount here. I think he will come charging late, and I think Full Effort is going to not do any disgrace to himself and his previous efforts so far. And he looked really good in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. So I think he is a horse that is definitely worth keeping on your ticket and keeping in mind for those trifecta, superfecta builds that you have. So I just want to give some examples on how I would spend, some money on Kentucky Derby Day and kind of what my ticket's going to be looking like. To play with $100, let's say, for win bets, I'd break it down into $50 with the Puma, $30 on Chief Wallaby, and $20 on Further Ado. Swinging for the fences here. So obviously, I think that the Puma is my top choice. Do I think he is the most likely winner of those three? Probably not. I think Further Ado, with just the quality of horse he is and his outside post draw of 18, that he's probably the most likely of those three to win. But I think the Puma is the best horse of those three, honestly. The Florida Derby series was the toughest prep series. And, the Puma beat him in the Tampa Bay Derby. So I do think he is the better horse, but I think Further Ado is the most likely winner. So those payouts would look like, $50 on Puma, you're making $550, Cheap Wallaby, $270, and then Further Ado would be $140. So if I'm putting in $100, I'm just trying to make my money back basically with that Further Ado bet there, the 20 on him. So that's how I break down 100. And then the Superfecta that I looked at building basically just followed the same breakdown of those 4 flights of horses, my top 11 there. This would be an $84 ticket that I built for a 10-cent Superfecta. We've got 9, 12, 18 in the 1. We've got 6, 7, 9, 12, 15 in the 2 spot. 1, 6, 7, 9, 11, 12, 14, 15, 18 in the 3 spot. And then in the 4th position, we have 1, 6, 7, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18, 20. That would be my 10-cent Superfecta ticket that I built. That'd be an $84 ticket. And that definitely would be a good payout there if any of those combinations were to hit. So we'll see. I'm sure if I were to build these out, and I'm definitely not going to be spending $184 next Saturday, but if I were to put those 2 tickets in there, knowing my luck, I would just be down $184. So probably don't trail me with these bets, but I thought I just want to put it out there, my thoughts. And there's so many different handicappers out there, and a ton of Kentucky Derby content going up right now. But if anyone does come across this video, that's kind of my thoughts. If anybody feels like commenting and leaving me your thoughts on how you handicap this race and who your top picks are, I would love to see it. I'm not going to get many comments on this video, so any comment I would see, it would definitely get my attention, and I would read it entirely and definitely digest how you're thinking about the Run for the Roses. So thanks for watching, guys. Here's a little painted horse again that I made. But I wish you guys the best of luck on May 2nd, and I hope your tickets hit for you. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Take care.